Welcome, everyone, to a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about justice, truth, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. This isn't just a narrative, it's a powerful reminder that sometimes what we believe to be undeniably true can mask a devastating reality. Lean in, listen closely, and prepare to be moved. This story is a compelling and poignant exploration of the justice system's inherent flaws and the profound human cost of wrongful convictions. It skillfully introduces David Jenkins, an ordinary, good-hearted man whose life is irrevocably altered by a tragic confluence of circumstances. The story powerfully illustrates the fallibility of eyewitness identification, highlighting how trauma can distort memory and lead to devastating errors, even with the purest intentions. The inclusion of flawed forensic science, specifically the junk science of microscopic hair analysis, further underscores the systemic vulnerabilities that can trap innocent individuals. What makes this narrative truly impactful is not just the injustice, but the journey towards vindication through the advent of DNA technology and the unexpected alliance between David and Sarah Albright. Their shared advocacy transforms a personal tragedy into a powerful call for reform, emphasizing that justice is an ongoing pursuit rather than a static destination. The story is a powerful reminder of resilience, forgiveness, and the enduring quest for truth. Picture this, it's the mid-1980s, a time when the world felt a little simpler, a little slower. Our story begins not in a courtroom, but in the heart of a bustling, tight-knit community, a place where everyone knew your name, and a handshake was as good as a contract. And at the center of it all was David Jenkins. David wasn't chasing grand fortunes or flashing lights. His dreams were as solid and honest as the calloused hands that earned his living. He worked hard at the local plant, the kind of guy who'd always offer to fix your car on a Saturday afternoon, just because that's what neighbors did. His easy laugh could fill a room, and his spirit was as bright and clear as a summer sky. Every evening, after wiping the grease from his hands, he'd head home, maybe stop by his little sister's place to help her with homework, or grab a quick game of pickup basketball with his buddies at the park. Life, for David, was about family, about honest work, and about the quiet promise of a future he was building brick by brick. And oh, what a future it was! At the heart of David's world was Sarah, his fiancée. Their love story wasn't born from fireworks and dramatic declarations, but from shared glances across a crowded diner, from long walks under starlit skies, and from whispered dreams about a small house with a porch swing, maybe a couple of kids. They'd talk for hours about their hopes, their fears, their plans to save every penny. Sarah wasn't just his partner. She was his anchor, his confidant, the one who saw him, truly saw him, for the good man he was. But life, as we all know, has a cruel way of twisting the familiar into something unrecognizable. While David was living his ordinary, honest life, another story was unfolding, miles away, shrouded in terror. Imagine the silence of a quiet evening shattered by a nightmare. A violation so brutal, so utterly dehumanizing that it leaves an indelible mark on the soul. This was the reality that descended upon Sarah Albright, a young woman whose sense of security was ripped away in an instant. The attack was quick, vicious, leaving her battered, traumatized, and desperately trying to piece together fragments of a horrifying memory. The police arrived, compassionate yet firm, asking questions she could barely answer. "What did he look like?" they pressed. "Can you describe him?" Under the crushing weight of fear, shock, and the immense pressure to bring her attacker to justice, Sarah did her best. Her memory, fractured by trauma, clung to details, searching for a face, any face, to match the monster who had invaded her world. She wanted to help. She needed to help. Then came the moment that would forever alter two lives. In a brightly lit room, perhaps a police station, Sarah was presented with a lineup. Her heart pounded, her hands trembled, each face blurred into the next, until she saw him. A man standing tall, with a quiet gaze that seemed to pierce through her. She felt a jolt of recognition, a certainty that pulsed through her veins. "That's him," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "That's the man." That man was David Jenkins. The very next morning, as David was heading to work, perhaps whistling a tune, police cruisers swarmed his quiet street. The flashing blue lights painted grotesque patterns on his porch. He stood there, bewildered, as officers, stern-faced and unyielding, approached him. "David Jenkins?" one asked, his voice devoid of emotion. "You're under arrest for rape and robbery." The words hung in the air, cold and heavy, shattering the peaceful dawn. David's world, so carefully constructed, imploded in an instant. Confusion gave way to disbelief, then a chilling terror. Arrest? For what? There must be some mistake, he stammered, his mind racing through his innocent evening. He had an alibi, flimsy perhaps, but an alibi nonetheless. He was home, he was with his family. But no one seemed to be listening. No one believed him. The handcuffs clicked, cold and unforgiving, around his wrists. As they led him away, he caught a glimpse of his mother's tear-streaked face, a silent scream of agony contorting her features. In that moment, a shadow fell over David's bright future. A lie, cast by circumstances, by trauma, and by a system that was about to show its deepest, most devastating blind spot. He had no idea just how long and how brutally that shadow would cling to him. David's world shrunk to the confines of a holding cell, then the grim reality of the courtroom. The air in that room felt thick, heavy with expectation, and a justice that seemed determined to run its course, regardless of the truth. His lawyer, Maria Sanchez, was a revelation. Young, with a fire in her eyes and a stack of dog-eared law books clutched tightly, she was the only one who truly seemed to believe him. She had his alibi, however shaky, and a fierce dedication. But in the grand theater of justice, dedication wasn't always enough. The prosecution painted a picture of certainty, and their star witness was Sarah Albright. She walked to the stand, a figure of strength and vulnerability. Her voice, though soft, carried an undeniable power as she recounted the horror of that night. "I saw his face," she testified, her gaze unwavering even as it swept past David, pinning him with a certainty that chilled him to the bone. "I will never forget that face. It was him." Her conviction, born from trauma and a desperate need for closure, was incredibly compelling. To the jury, to anyone listening, her absolute certainty was as good as irrefutable proof. But here's the crucial, often overlooked, truth about memory, especially under extreme duress. It's fragile, it's malleable. It can betray us, even when our intentions are pure. For decades, legal systems, not just in America but worldwide, have relied heavily on eyewitness accounts, assuming a person's memory is like a perfect video recording. Yet studies, countless exonerations by DNA, have shown that mistaken eyewitness identification is the leading cause of wrongful convictions, contributing to over 60% of all DNA exonerations. Imagine the pressure Sarah felt, needing to identify someone to reclaim some control. In that vulnerable state, a suggestive lineup, a well-meaning police officer, or even subtle internal biases can cement a false memory as absolute truth. Then came the scientific evidence. The prosecution brought forth a forensic hair analyst, a man with a booming voice and an air of authority. He presented slides, spoke in complex jargon, and declared with supreme confidence that a hair found at the crime scene microscopically matched David's. It sounded incredibly convincing. It was convincing. Maria, despite her best efforts to question his methodology, found herself outmaneuvered by the expert's seemingly unshakable confidence. What the jury didn't know, what the system often ignored, was that microscopic hair analysis, without DNA confirmation, is widely considered junk science. It's subjective, unreliable, and has led to countless wrongful convictions, particularly for individuals from marginalized communities, where biases can subtly influence an analyst's match. David sat there, numb, listening to the pieces of his life being twisted into a narrative of guilt. He tried to speak, to explain, but his voice was swallowed by the gravitas of the courtroom. His alibi, thin to begin with, seemed to crumble under the weight of Sarah's powerful testimony and the seemingly objective scientific proof. He felt the jury's eyes on him, not seeing David Jenkins, the man who worked at the plant, but the monster the prosecution had carefully crafted. The subtle, unspoken biases in the room, the ones that could influence jury selection or perceptions of a young black man from a working-class neighborhood, hung heavy in the air. The verdict came swiftly, like a punch to the gut. Guilty. In that moment, David wasn't just convicted, he was erased. His future, his dreams with Sarah, his very identity, were swallowed by a system that believed it had achieved justice, but had in fact locked an innocent man away. The chains that bound him weren't just the steel of the handcuffs, they were the unseen chains of mistaken identity, flawed science, and a justice system's terrifying blind spot. And as the gavel fell, sealing his fate, David had no idea that his agonizing journey was only just beginning. The labyrinth of despair awaited him. The iron gates clanged shut behind David with a chilling finality. The sounds of his old life, Sarah's laughter, the rumble of his truck, the distant shouts from the basketball court, faded into a deafening silence. His new reality was cold concrete, the clatter of keys, and the constant unsettling murmur of hundreds of other lives, all confined. Prison wasn't just a place, it was a thief, stealing not just his freedom, but his very essence. Day by agonizing day, David learned quickly how to survive. He learned the unspoken rules, the subtle power dynamics, and the quiet dignity some men clung to amidst the despair. He found solace in unexpected places: a tattered book from the library, a shared knowing glance with another inmate who understood the meaning of a heavy silence. He saw acts of kindness, small and profound, that reminded him humanity could still exist even behind these walls. But he also saw brutality, hopelessness, and the relentless grind of a system designed to punish, not to redeem. The monotony was a kind of torture itself, every day bleeding into the next, blurring into weeks, months, years. Time became a thick, molasses-like substance, impossible to move through. Every letter from his family was a lifeline, a fragile thread connecting him to the outside world. He'd picture his mother's worried face, his sister growing up without him, and the ache in his chest would be almost unbearable. He missed the simple things: a home-cooked meal, the feel of grass under his feet, the open sky. But most of all, he missed Sarah. Their visits were short, strained, separated by glass, their love a fragile bloom trying to survive in a desolate landscape. He knew she was hurting too, living with her own kind of prison, haunted by the very act that had trapped him. Meanwhile, outside those walls, Sarah Albright was also wrestling with her demons. The attack had left scars far beyond the physical. She was a survivor, yes, but her nights were plagued by nightmares. Her conviction that she had identified her attacker gave her a sense of closure, a foundation upon which to rebuild. She poured her energy into advocating for victims of violence, finding purpose in helping others heal. Her certainty about David's guilt was a cornerstone of her recovery, an unshakable truth that allowed her to move forward. The thought that she might be wrong was simply too terrifying to contemplate, a seismic shift that would undo the very fabric of her fragile peace. Years passed. The world kept spinning, oblivious to David's stagnant existence. But change, slow and quiet, was brewing on the horizon. In the hushed laboratories of forensic science, a revolutionary new technology was beginning to emerge. DNA. It was a whispered promise at first. A scientific marvel that could read the unique genetic blueprint of an individual from the tiniest speck of blood, a single strand of hair, or a discarded cigarette butt. David's unwavering lawyer Maria had never given up. She had tirelessly exhausted every traditional appeal, facing rejection after rejection. But she was a voracious reader, a tireless researcher. She started hearing about these groundbreaking DNA cases, these miraculous exonerations. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but a flicker of hope ignited within her. If this new science could truly identify a person with such precision, then perhaps, just perhaps, it could speak for David, who had no voice in that cold prison. The battle to get the evidence retested was its own war. The original evidence from David's case, the crucial biological samples, had been collected years ago. Some might be degraded, some might have been improperly stored, some might have even been dismissed as irrelevant at the time because the technology wasn't there to analyze them. The legal system, slow and resistant to change, wasn't keen on revisiting old cases, on admitting potential flaws. Maria faced bureaucratic hurdles, dismissive prosecutors, and the sheer inertia of a system that preferred finality over truth. But fueled by David's quiet endurance and her own unwavering belief, Maria kept fighting, relentlessly knocking on every door, making every call. The clock was ticking, not just for David's freedom, but for the very viability of the fragile evidence that held the key. The hope was real, but the path to it was a daunting labyrinth, filled with obstacles at every turn. The waiting was a special kind of torment. For David, each passing day in prison was a stark reminder of his stolen life. For Maria, every phone call, every email, every slow-moving bureaucratic response was a test of her resolve. They knew the DNA evidence painstakingly preserved from decades ago was fragile. One mistake, one error, and this last, fragile hope, could vanish. David's family clung to every whispered update, their own lives put on hold, tethered to the outcome of a scientific test they barely understood. Then, the call finally came. It was Maria, her voice trembling, an almost disbelieving tone. "David," she whispered, "the results are in." In that sterile, unforgiving prison environment, time seemed to stop. David's heart hammered against his ribs. He braced himself for the usual disappointment, for another door slamming shut. But what Maria said next didn't just open a door, it blew the entire wall down. "The DNA from the crime scene, it's not yours, David." A wave of dizzying relief so powerful it almost buckled his knees washed over him. But then, the second, even more shocking revelation. Maria continued, and it gets even bigger. The DNA. It belongs to Marcus Mac Thorne. Marcus Thorne. The name was a phantom, an echo from forgotten police reports. He was a petty criminal, a drifter who had been in and out of trouble in a neighboring county, often for similar, violent offenses. The chilling truth slammed into David. While he, an innocent man, wasted away behind bars, the real perpetrator had been free, potentially committing other crimes, living a life of impunity. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a systemic failure that had allowed a dangerous man to remain in the shadows, while an innocent one paid the price. The news spread like wildfire through the prison. The guards, the inmates, everyone knew. David, the quiet man who had always maintained his innocence, was finally vindicated. His release wasn't just a legal formality, it was a torrent of raw, complicated emotion. Walking out of those gates after years felt like stepping onto an alien planet. The sun was too bright, the sounds of traffic too loud. The world had moved on, hurtling forward with technology he barely recognized. His family was there, their faces etched with years of worry, now radiating a joyful, tearful disbelief. It was a reunion of unparalleled relief, but also a stark reminder of all the lost birthdays, holidays, and everyday moments. Yet, the most difficult confrontation lay ahead. Sarah Albright, the woman whose unshakable certainty had put him behind bars. Maria arranged the meeting. It was held in a neutral space, quiet and tense. Sarah walked in, her face pale, her eyes filled with a mixture of apprehension and an agonizing understanding. She sat across from David, the man she had identified, the man she had believed was her attacker for so long. "David," she began, her voice barely a whisper, thick with emotion. I don't know what to say. I am so sorry." For David it was a moment of profound complexity. He saw not the accuser, but a woman clearly broken by her own mistake, grappling with a truth that was both liberating and devastating. The years of anger, resentment, and injustice swirled within him, but in her raw public display of remorse, something shifted. It wasn't about excusing the system's failures, but about acknowledging the human cost. Sarah wasn't just saying sorry, she was beginning the grueling, courageous process of admitting she was wrong, publicly and personally. This was the true plot twist, the unexpected emotional depth. The victim and the wrongly accused, caught in a shared tragedy, now facing each other, not as adversaries but as two individuals profoundly impacted by the same terrible lie. Their path forward, a journey of shared healing and an unlikely alliance, was about to begin. Freedom tasted exhilarating, but it also felt disorienting. After years of the rigid, predictable structure of prison life, the sheer normalcy of the outside world was overwhelming. David found himself grappling with simple things: the blinding speed of a computer mouse, the endless choices at a grocery store, the casual chatter of people absorbed in their phones. Society had sprinted ahead while he stood still. The emotional scars ran deep, too. Flashes of anger, moments of profound sadness for the lost years, and the quiet struggle to trust a world that had so profoundly betrayed him. Rebuilding was a monumental task, requiring endless patience and resilience. His relationship with his family, though loving, needed mending. They had suffered alongside him, burdened by the injustice, their own lives shaped by his absence. Finding stable work proved challenging. The stigma of a prison record, even an overturned one, cast a long shadow. But David, ever the quiet fighter, took it one day at a time, slowly piecing together a new life, finding strength in the small victories like mastering a smartphone or sharing a genuine laugh with a loved one. Yet, it was in the most unexpected of alliances that a powerful new purpose began to emerge. Sarah Albright, grappling with her own profound guilt and the crushing weight of her mistake, sought not just forgiveness but redemption. She began to speak publicly, alongside David, about the fallibility of eyewitness identification. It was an act of incredible courage for both of them. Imagine the raw vulnerability of a victim admitting she was wrong, and the quiet dignity of a man who spent decades in prison, offering a path to healing. Their story, once a testament to grave injustice, transformed into a powerful advocacy for change. They traveled, shared their experiences, and lent their voices to organizations like the Innocence Project, pushing for crucial reforms, better lineup procedures, mandatory DNA testing in certain cases, and increased awareness about the flaws in forensic science that had once been considered infallible. Their shared mission transcended their personal tragedy, becoming a beacon for others trapped in similar circumstances. It was an unlikely friendship born from shared trauma, forged in the crucible of truth. David's journey wasn't just about reclaiming his own freedom. It became about safeguarding the freedom of others. He knew his experience, however painful, could be a catalyst. He finally found a profound peace, not in forgetting the past, but in transforming his suffering into purpose. His legacy wasn't defined by the years he lost, but by the lives he touched, the changes he helped enact, and the enduring testament to the indomitable human spirit that refused to be broken. His story reminds us that justice isn't a destination, it's a relentless pursuit, and that truth, no matter how long it takes, will always find a way to emerge from the shadows. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think, made you feel, then please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to our channel for more tales that challenge, inspire, and remind us of the incredible human spirit. Your support helps us amplify these crucial stories. Thank yourself for listening.